What do you think of when you hear the names Bonnie and Clyde? Possibly a romantic couple of outlaws or dangerous criminals that needed to be stopped? While some myths of Bonnie and Clyde are true, many have been misconstrued. My name is Madeline Light, and I'm here to inform you today about the realities of Bonnie and Clyde's lives and deaths. I know many of us are familiar with the story of Bonnie and Clyde, robbing and taking the lives of anyone and anything that came in their way. You may have even heard of the Bonnie and Clyde Ambush Museum that is not far from Ruston. What many people don't know is the stories and conceptions of Bonnie and Clyde are not completely accurate. During this speech, I will discuss the realities of Bonnie and Clyde's burglaries, their marital status, the aspirations of their lives, and their final days. During the Great Depression, it was a difficult time for everybody to make ends meet. Many people worked several jobs, made their children work, or if you were Bonnie and Clyde, you just robbed your nearest convenience store. Contrary to popular belief, Bonnie and Clyde's main focus was not robbing banks. In the 2 years they spent being outlaws, they robbed less than 15 banks. They actually spent most of their time robbing gas stations and grocery stores, mainly because they had less security and made for an easier getaway. Since robbing gas stations and small grocery stores didn't get them much money, they had to do that more frequently to get by. This made them easier to track, so they had to move around quite a bit. Their primary mode of transportation was stolen cars, 13 cars total to be exact. One way they remained discreet was obtaining a numerous amount of license plates. As you can see here, this is an actual photo of the license plates Bonnie and Clyde used to stay hidden from the authorities. They had plates from states like Oklahoma, Texas, Indiana, and more. When they did have enough money to get by, it has been said that they would disperse amounts of each of it to their family. While they did live a life of crime that many didn't approve of, their families still remained important to them. While neither of their families approved of their life of crime or their relationship, one thing was certain: Bonnie and Clyde did love each other. Many people were led to believe that Bonnie and Clyde were married, but that was not the case. Bonnie actually got married when she was just 16 years old. During that time, Bonnie was unaware that her husband would turn out to be abusive, a thief, and eventually land in prison. After she met Clyde, he landed in prison as well for a small theft charge. In the hopes of him being freed and them starting a normal life together, she smuggled in a gun to the jail and he quickly escaped. But Clyde had no intentions of stopping his criminal antics, and Bonnie was right next to him from that point on. Bonnie died a married woman, wedding ring still on her finger, because divorce wasn't really an option for a known fugitive. When her husband heard of her death, he was still in prison. Bonnie and Clyde grew up both having big aspirations for their lives and both wanting to be famous. Little did they know that when they became famous, they would become famous just not for what they had envisioned. Before Bonnie, Clyde's first love was music. He enjoyed singing and taught himself how to play guitar and saxophone. Bonnie also had a love for music, singing in local pageants and talent shows. She also enjoyed movies and often pictured herself being an actress. Bonnie would often leave behind movie magazines and the stolen cars that they would abandon, and Clyde carried his guitar until finally having to abandon it while on the run as well. Bonnie was also known to be a writer, and even continued to write when she was on the run with Clyde. In one poem she wrote, entitled "The Story of Bonnie and Clyde," the last lines were, "Someday they'll go down together, and they'll bury them side by side. To few it'll be grief, to the law a relief, but it's death for Bonnie and Clyde." Knowing their time would eventually come to an end, they still enjoyed the things that made them happy earlier in life. Clyde's saxophone was with him until the very end, in the back of the car that they were ambushed in. Bonnie and Clyde's last days were coming to an end when they shot and killed 2 police officers on Easter Sunday, and the public opinion of them completely changed. Before this, the public often found them admirable and compared them to modern-day Robin Hoods. The couple was known for killing civilians, stealing cars, abducting law enforcement, robbing banks, and killing at least 5 law enforcement officers before opening fire on the 2 on Easter Sunday. One of the law officers who were killed on that Easter Sunday was supposed to get married the next week, and his fiancée ended up wearing her wedding gown to the funeral. This caused an uproar in society to capture these fugitives and finally put an end to their criminal acts. They were finally caught by authorities in Beanville Parish, Louisiana, and gunned down at the scene, not very far from Ruston. In conclusion, the lives of Bonnie and Clyde are often misconstrued these days. While they didn't spend much time robbing banks, they were not married, and never ended up being famous for what they had envisioned, their names will forever be known as the ultimate criminal dynamic duo.